All right, everyone, welcome. Today is our October 1st book club. We are doing chapters 7 and 8. And I have to say, these are a couple of my favorite chapters. Um, Basically, if you think of the whole point of PRT, it's decreasing the fear thoughts and increasing messages of safety. And that's basically what these two chapters cover. Breaking the habit of high alert is chapter 7, and chapter 8 is, what is chapter 8 titled? Basically like getting good at feeling good, right? Which is one of my favorite things to teach, because I think so much of the time we are talking about what to do and how to fight pain and how to decrease, we're like, give me a task. And we kind of neglect the part of like feeling good on purpose. So I love teaching about that. So I have our chat going. If anyone wants to pop in any of your thoughts or questions that came up for you, but we'll go ahead and start with talking about chapter 7. And okay, I'm just kind of muting people so there's no background noise. So chapter 7 is about breaking that high alert habit. And I have to tell you, for me personally, this was one of my biggest things. I was very critical of myself. I always felt like I was being chased by a tiger, and it was my own insecurities and pressure on myself and kind of constant alert and monitoring. Am I doing things right? Am I being perfect at this? Are people liking me or not? And so how many of you guys can relate to being in high alert? Is that something that you're feeling quite a bit? Something that I see in all my clients basically is this real like awareness. And what we know is, what we focus on, we create more of, and those neural pathways get stronger and wire together. So we can actually start to change what we're focusing on. But first is just kind of recognizing that we're in this state of high alert. And for many people, it's just pretty normal, and they might not even say that they feel stressed. I've talked to many, many people on like consult calls or like these clarity calls that I've done, and people they're like, I'm really not that stressed in my life. I really, I'm married and I love my kids, but there's these little insidious stressors that maybe they're not thinking of. And then for people who have chronic pain itself can be a stressor. He says a few statistics, like 55% of Americans say they feel a lot of stress. But again, like if you're having a lot of chronic pain and you think, oh, I don't really feel stress, maybe like get a little curious about that. Even as a physical therapist, I remember this one lady that I worked with who had neck pain, tight neck muscles. Her shoulders were up by her ears. And I was asking her about stress, and she was like, nope, I don't have any stress at all, but her posture was telling me otherwise, right? So here are some ways that you can start to look for where you might be on high alert. And it's just kind of normal in our society. And definitely our phones, our technology, electronics, just our access to information. When he's talking about the zebra analogy, and he talks about ZNN, the Zebra News Network. I love that, because it's like, our tiger is getting faster, and basically like we have so much access to information that can stress us out, that previous generations never had that much access to, and it puts us on more of a high alert. So I found it interesting. Our cortisol goes up every time you hear your phone or think you hear your phone. So I've definitely experienced that. And I just thought it was super interesting too, because a lot of you guys are in the Tell Me About Your Pain Facebook group. And as a moderator, sometimes I put some posts up and it'll tell me an alert of someone has commented on your post, and I go into fight or flight. My body, I'm starting to get used to like, okay, it doesn't mean it's bad. None of them have been bad so far, but like I get into this, like, oh, I bet there is a really bad comment, that's what my brain goes to, right? So even though I'm out of chronic pain and I'm not worrying about that anymore, I still do tend to be the kind of person that wants to stay on high alert, figure things out, be really safe by, being in this high alert state. But what we want to see is this high alert state is not making us more safe, right? It's not at all. If we can start to relax and live our life more, how does he say it? I wrote down this phrase actually, most of the things you're worried about never actually happen. And when you're not worried, you allow your life to unfold in ways you wouldn't have imagined, right? So we kind of think if we figure out all the things, we watch all the news and figure out, what may happen and think about that and how we would react. But all of that is actually preventing us from living our lives and seeing what naturally would unfold if we weren't in this high alert state. Okay, you guys resonating with that? It's kind of quiet on the chat here, but feel free to, even just write anything about if this resonates with you, if this sounds like you, right? I check our phones. It's at an average of 221 times a day. So just think to yourself, oh, hey, Peter, thanks. Yeah, it's resonating. Okay. So here's the thing with technology and with any of these things, actually, he says this in the book. We don't want to be perfectionistic about some of our habits, right? So if we have the habit of checking our phone and then we want to go all the way to like, well, I just won't have a phone at all, like that's going to be a huge leap. But I like the kind of thoughts of like, say I already like checking my phone. If I like checking my Instagram, having my Instagram full of like babies and puppies and, funny memes, and have it something more like, leaning into more of those positive sensations and joy versus like checking on news and stocks and things that might, not be as joyful and might promote more fear. Okay, so especially, yes, Peter says, especially when it's a name that pops up with a person you don't particularly like, right? You can just see like one word, like words on a screen and have an emotion, right? Because this whole physical thing happens. And next thing you know, you're in pain just because, something like your phone dinged. And it said, I found it fascinating too, 89% of people have had like a phantom phone ring or vibration in there, like they imagine that they've felt their pain, or sorry, their phone, and it's not even in their pocket. Like I for sure had that. Renee says, I never knew I had stress until I took my first yoga class and learned what it feels like to relax. Exactly. It's like when people are telling me like I'm totally relaxed and I have chronic pain, I just wonder if they're, if they know what it feels like to totally relax. And we'll talk about that more with the chapter 8 stuff, but just entertain the idea that there may be some areas you could live with less high alert and it would actually decrease your pain. And then it's interesting as I read the book before, but now reading it again, my self-awareness is increasing. I resonate more with the book. Yeah, interesting. And I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but thanks for that comment. And Peter says, why is the phone addicting? I don't even like talking like that, honestly, because we're not helpless in it. And I think it, like, talking about a phone as addictive is kind of fear inducing. So I see it as a tool. I think that sometimes it is really calming to our nervous system to play a game on our phone if we're not beating ourselves up about it. So I think just like any tool, it can be used for positive, it can be used for negative, but what we tend to use it for is comparing ourselves to other people on social media, which we know has a negative effect, and checking things like news, which we know is designed to promote fear. I mean, it's just story after story of, fear inducing types of things. And we know that when we're in a fear-based state, even if we're fearing like something else, global warming, but we're in a fear-based state, we're more likely to misinterpret safe signals as dangerous, which means our brain can produce more pain, right? So anytime I've even felt myself getting stressed watching a show where people were lying a lot, they were like, there was like some, they killed someone and they had to cover it up, and then something else. And right. And I was binge watching this series, and I'm like, I am so freaking like, my stomach's all in knots just watching this show. So just look at this for yourself, see if there's a few little ways that you can start to soften, but again, not expecting perfectionism. And then I like to get creative with like I said, if it is a tool that I like to use it for positive things as much as I can. Because there really are a lot of like positive things you could follow and look at. But our brain wants to protect us and keep us informed of all the things that could happen. Was it Suits on Netflix? Non-Netflix, LOL. I'm addicted, but it's such a good show. It wasn't. I haven't watched that. It was I think it's called Dead to Me or something. Anyway, it was good, and I finished it because I was like enthralled. And that's the thing too, is like sometimes we like these emotions. We go to haunted houses, we go on roller coasters. So sometimes like it is kind of fun to like be able to feel that emotion in a safe way. So it's not all bad. Some people do like watching kind of more suspenseful shows. So just feel for yourself. Is it a net positive for you? Do you like it? I tend more towards comedies just because like I feel like I already have enough drama in my life. But if that is something that you really enjoy, it is a safe way to feel those emotions where you're not, you can just also turn it off and go back to your real life and, not, anyway, you know what I'm saying? None of these emotions are bad to feel. We just don't want to perpetuate only fear-based thoughts, because then our brain does start to create more pain. It just does. And someone else is like, yeah, I saw that too. Good one. So, okay. So the thing is, if we have some moderation, we could watch a scary show. We could, watch some news, probably, whatever. I don't watch news, but just look at your balance, right? Is it all high alert behaviors? And another high alert area that we get into is facing uncertainty. So this is one that I see so much in myself and all of my clients. Maybe the kids are starting school, or maybe you're about to go on a trip, or maybe, you're changing jobs, any of these kind of things where there's some kind of uncertainty, or maybe you're even checking out PRT and your brain is used to thinking in one way, and then we're telling you all kinds of different things here, and there's some uncertainty. Just know that it's normal for your brain to not like uncertainty. That is going to cause kind of a stressed reaction. That's normal. But we can also amplify that if we're making everything a big deal. So basically what he talks about here is basically cultivating this attitude of things are going to be okay. Things are going to be okay either way. Now, he said like maybe 1% of the time there is something that, if it's like a tumor or something, he's like, there may be an outcome that would be better one way than another, right? But for most cases, and I see this with life coaching too, like if it is a decision that you're trying to make and you're really struggling over, it's because there's not a clear answer one way or another. So both decisions are probably about 50-50, right? There could be about, half the stuff about it that is good and half the stuff about it that is more challenging. And that's why the decision is hard, because both are just about 50-50. And in life coaching, we also toy with this idea that there are no wrong decisions, and that can help. We have a comment: uncertainty is where a lot of my hypervigilance shows up, which I didn't even notice until last year. Yeah, so interesting, right? Some of these patterns and habits we might have just had for a long time, or maybe we've just developed them, but the awareness is the first step. Just noticing that, you know, it does stress me out to be in this uncertain situation. Of course, that makes sense. It's normal. And I also can reinforce and send these messages of safety that it is okay. Let's see. And that's where he's talking about, like, if you're worried, just starting to realize that habit of worry, it's just a habit. It's not necessarily helping you. It's not helping you at all. It's not necessarily telling you things are true or dangerous. And this was not in the book, but I've heard this somewhere, and I don't know the reference, but it kind of sounds right to me. About 80% of the things you worry about never actually happen. And if they do, you usually handle them or manage them better than you think you're going to. So one thing that's helped for me is just having this idea of, I'm the kind of person that can decide things in the moment, or I'm getting so that I can trust myself to make a decision or ask for help or find resources if that happens, but I don't have to think about it now. Kind of more like, I don't have to solve all the problems right now. I trust that when a problem comes up, I'm the kind of person that will find an answer to it then. So that has helped me a lot. And you might find, little ways that you can feel safer. One phrase that he uses here is, it's going to be okay either way. And, maybe starting to, wrap your head around that, or believe that in some ways, or if it doesn't sound very plausible right now, just even thinking it's possible that it will be okay either way, right? Maybe it'll be okay either way is already a less fearful thought than going to the worst case scenario, which is what our brain tends to do, right? There's a really cool video, actually. I think when I put the replay up of this, I'll link it in the comments. It's just like a 3-minute little cartoon video about how to get rid of intrusive thoughts. And I think this really applies with worry. And he basically says, when your brain loves to solve problems, and when it does, it gets some dopamine. And so we get really good at then creating problems for our brain to solve so that we get this little hit of dopamine, and that reinforces this worrying behavior. But what we want to see is we don't have to chase every stick the brain throws. Like, some of these thoughts are just going to come up, and the more we can ignore them and not buy into them, then the brain will create them less and less and less. So that helped me just to realize what was going on. Oh, my brain wants to create all these problems to solve, but really ultimately I'm going to feel a lot better if I'm not creating the cortisol and then dopamine, but I just start to trust that things are going to be okay and find evidence for that. And then that becomes more and more easy to believe. Okay, and let's see, there's a comment here. So it was about the hypervigilance, I think. That's how I actually am, make good decisions in the moment. Hypervigilance is for sure a habit from when it served me well. I love that point. Like, it's not like we're, getting into these bad habits and they're just purely dysfunctional. And, why did we ever do this? Like, part of the reason these habits are embedded in us and, in our parents and stuff is, to some degree, they have served us. So it's not bad that you have some high alert. It's just, if that's all you have, then you're going to be missing out on a lot of life, and you're more susceptible to your brain creating pain. So definitely, technology can be one area, facing uncertainty, and then feeling trapped. I remember in Dr. Schubner's training, he said that everyone that he's ever worked with that has mind-body syndrome has some element of feeling trapped. So even at the start of mind body syndrome or like neuroplastic pain, just look at maybe areas of your life that you are feeling trapped. Okay. So sometimes that's in a job situation or something physical. So just thinking about that emotionally feeling trapped. And then he does talk about how he was on a plane ride and he was on the inner seats and was not able to get out, and he was feeling very trapped and was not able to stand up and stretch his back. And so that whole plane ride, just feeling trapped really amplified his pain. But then he learned from that, I can take a few precautionary steps to decrease some of that uncertainty and the feelings of being trapped. And so, he just planned to get an aisle seat on the way home. And he said, even though he had access to standing up, he only needed to a couple of times, but just knowing that he, had some kind of strategy to not feel trapped caused his brain to not produce as much pain, right? So have any of you guys noticed that sensation or that feeling trapped and then increasing your pain? I'll tell a little example of mine, even though it's like, well, whatever it is. It's a little more personal, I think, but I struggled with digestive stuff. So there were times that I was in a conversation and very urgent to go to the bathroom, right? And even after the like digestive stuff, then I had some like incontinence stuff. So it was the same kind of thing of like feeling trapped in conversations, or it would happen at certain times, like right when I was about to say goodbye, and then I'd have this urgency and have to like get to my car and anyway, so I started noticing these patterns, and I started being able to kind of reverse engineer. Okay, of course this is neuroplastic because it only happens at these certain times, and it happens during this feeling of urgency, feeling stressed, feeling trapped. So I can definitely resonate. And no one else is commenting, so I think we'll just go ahead and move on to the next chapter, which is my favorite chapter of the book, getting good at feeling good. Just because, like I said, I feel like, and Karen says, yes to that. Yes, that resonates. So thanks. I like when you guys comment. Makes me feel like I'm not just talking to myself. Actually, I wanted to share a funny little like anecdote too, because, those fear thoughts we were talking about, and I really noticed how I really can see how fear thoughts can create a symptom in the moment. And sometimes, like when I first started book club, I had a few times where I was like messing up on my words or like forgetting what I was saying. And it was so funny because those times were times that I was thinking like, what if Alan Gordon is watching this back? And I wonder what he's thinking about if I'm doing this okay, doing his book justice. And, what if I don't look professional enough, things like that. So just on my end, like I said, I'm not struggling with the chronic pain issues anymore. And I can be the observer of my thoughts so much more. And I can even kind of laugh at it. But it's funny because like, how it is when you're like, the thing you really don't want is what you create because you're afraid of it. If you're like, I really need to get up early, need to get a good night's sleep, then usually you have a less restful sleep. So anyway, just notice those fear thoughts and how they relate to your actual symptoms, because when you get into a fear-based state, a nervous system state, your mind doesn't think as clearly, or your muscles get tighter, or you have a nervous system response that, it's just because of our thoughts in this situation of danger. So it's kind of funny. And then, someone's saying, thankful for the book club. I can't participate because I'm on public transportation. Yeah, sorry, I don't want to guilt trip you guys into like you have to participate, but thanks for clarifying. And then Peter says, yeah, that's right. When I want good sleep, I don't have, and then I have more sensations. Exactly. That's the kind of thing, right? If we're like, there, I remember the story of this woman who was so afraid of blushing. And so she, would go into a conversation so worried about what if I start blushing? And of course, she was blushing because that's all she was thinking about, right? So the main principle is lower your alert to lower your pain. Look at those times when we're on high alert. And if we do have a body symptom, instead of looking at like, oh, what was the physical thing I just did, or what was the food that I just ate, but like, what kind of stressors are going on right now? Am I feeling trapped? Am I in high alert? Am I facing some uncertainty? And the more we can just send our brain these messages of safety, we'll start to believe them more and more. We'll start to feel like the world can be a safe place. We don't have to be in survival states all the time. And the brain will stop misinterpreting safe signals as dangerous. Okay, so getting good at feeling good. Basically, fear makes our pain worse. And when we're in high alert, that makes our pain worse. And we're more likely to interpret safe signals as dangerous. And positive emotions soothe your pain, right? A few little summary statements. Positive emotions soothe your pain. Okay. And I noticed that if I have a stressful day, I don't have immediate pain. However, the next day sensations are more. Yeah. I mean, that's how it can show up. That can be a little bit of predictive coding. So just watch out for that. If you're like, ooh, I had a stressful day, I bet I'll really feel it tomorrow. That could be a place to find some fine tuning. But yeah, when you notice those sensations, linking it back to the stress rather than, oh, it's because I was sitting for 2 hours or whatever. Okay. So basically, as I've said, the goal of PRT, I love how he just describes it so simply, is we know there's neuroplasticity. So we want to decrease the fear thoughts, decrease the associations that lead to fear, danger, or anxiety. This is on page 123. And we want to reinforce the connections that we want: safety, calmness, freedom. So we want to increase these messages of safety and calmness and freedom. Okay. So a few ways you can do that. The first is starting with self-compassion. This can be the hardest one, I find, for myself and for everyone that I work with. I think we're not really taught a lot about self-compassion. There's just a general belief that we need to be hard on ourselves in order to improve. And that's the opposite of self-compassion. What they've actually shown in research is that you cannot shame yourself into change. Maybe it could produce a small, lasting, tiny change, but to actually change, your neural pathways and to feel differently more of the time, that is going to happen by compassion and acceptance of where you are rather than through shaming and hating where you are and hating yourself and urgency. Inner child, he talks about like if you had a child that you loved, maybe it's your own child or a niece or nephew or something you could imagine, and they get bullied at school, you might go and talk to the teacher and find a plan and make that change so that it doesn't happen again, and take that kid out to ice cream and talk about it. And he says it's not because you a parenting book said that you need to do it like that, and it's not because you want that child to be successful so they can take care of you in your old age. You just love that child, and you just want them to feel happy, and you care about them, and it is hard for you, it's sad for you when they feel sad. So that's the kind of like connection we want to form with our bodies. But if we've had chronic pain, it may not feel like we can trust our body. It may not feel like we have a lot of compassion or acceptance of where we are. Yeah. And then I feel I'm going to the chat here. I feel trapped going into winter. I feel clumsy and tired on cloudy days. Conditioned response. Yeah. Yeah. So interesting, right? Yeah. I mean, freeze, that nervous system state of freeze, you're more likely to have accidents and be clumsy and feel fatigue and tired. So yeah, maybe on a cloudy day, you go into more freeze, the nervous system state. Okay, so when we can foster that self-compassion, that is going to be where we can more easily feel good and start to change. Okay, so I'll just say for me, I never really understood self-compassion and how to like be pretty neutral about what was going on with myself and my thoughts until I learned about the nervous system. Once I learned about the nervous system, it was just, we know our nervous system is subconscious and it is going into these fear-based states, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and it's just deciding for us and doing that. And you can see what the states, you know, how they are, what kind of thoughts you have, what kind of emotions, how it affects your body. And so it took it from like, why am I so weak? Why do I keep doing this? Why can't I just get this concept to like, oh, okay, I get it. My nervous system is thinking this is dangerous. My nervous system developed when I was a child. So it kind of brings in that inner child thing. And I just need to work with my nervous system instead of trying to fight it and resist that I went into this state. So there's also this concept of radical self-acceptance. There's a lot of self-compassion stuff from Kristin Neff. So, you know, take this opportunity to really start exploring self-compassion. If that's something that's hard for you, it will make a huge difference in every area of your life, not just your pain, but your relationships and how you show up in the world as well. So yeah, definitely self-compassion is one of the greatest tools you could develop. And then he talks about catching your fears. So like I was talking about that thought that I had when I started doing book club, I was, you know, I was kind of thinking about why I was tripping over my words. And it was clear to me that was the thought that I had that put me into a fear state. But you might not be able to catch your fears as much, especially if it's something you've just been thinking for a long, long time. So he says to notice the fear thought. And one thing that may really help on an earlier session, one of our earlier book clubs, I don't remember which week, we talked about the pain catastrophizing scale. And those pain catastrophizing statements, they may sound, you know, just like facts that you're stating, but we know that this increases pain. We know this increases that high alert state. So if you're thinking any of those type of thoughts, you can automatically say, okay, this is not a helpful thought. And one example would be like, I anxiously want the pain to go away. That may just seem like a thought that you're just, you know, oh, I'm just telling you how I feel. But saying that, thinking that is actually increasing more pain. And so that would be an example of noticing a fear thought. So what I did when I learned about that pain catastrophizing was I just read through those a few times so that I got familiar with what those catastrophizing statements sounded like. And then when I heard my brain doing that, when I, you know, could you know, tune into those thoughts and realize, oh, I'm thinking, I keep thinking about how much it hurts. I keep thinking about how badly I want the pain to stop. And then I can be like, oh, there's my brain catastrophizing. I can just label it as catastrophizing and say, oh, that's just my brain doing that. Right. So we just want to, we're not going to just fight all the thoughts and change them all. But if we can at least even observe them and start to label them and just say, oh, that's a fear-based thought, even that helps. And oh, yeah, Karen says she has Self-Compassion by Kristin Neff from the library right now. And it is next on her reading list. Yes, such a good one. Okay. So notice the fear thoughts, maybe get familiar with that pain catastrophizing scale. And then secondly, don't buy into it. So that can be hard. I'll give you a little example. When you're in freeze, especially when you're in that nervous system state where it's kind of hopeless and you don't think it's going to work out and you have shame and think something's wrong with you, you tend to like see the whole world as bad and you're not good enough. So I have this example where I was getting coached and I was telling my coach about like what a bad mom I am and what a bad coach and, how I'm, in my relationship, that's horrible. And then she asked how my yoga class was, and I teach a yoga class, and I had 10 people that night. And usually that's a good thing for me. I might have told this story before, so I apologize if I have, but usually 10 people I would be excited about. But I told her, yeah, I had 10 people, but I always play the same music and I do almost the same stuff every week. I bet it's getting so boring for them. So as I was saying it out loud to her, I started noticing like, oh, okay, I think I'm getting that, I don't actually want to buy into this, right? I don't want to buy into everything that my brain is offering me. Another example just came up for me that I was redoing I was doing this virtual retreat. So I went through all of my materials and printed out my workbook and all this stuff. And I looked at it and I was like seeing all the imperfections. But when I showed my friends and everyone I showed, they're like, that is so good. And so I just knew that these thoughts that were coming up of like, redo all your modules, oh, your workbook looks like crap. I just knew that those thoughts were just coming from that freeze state. So I didn't buy into them as much. So those are examples that are not with pain. So maybe that's a little easier. When you apply it to pain, it's going to take, maybe a little more buy-in and that evidence sheet that maybe you started in the previous chapters. But as much as you can, noticing the thoughts for what they are, just kind of your brain freaking out and not buying into it. And then, you may go into like worst case scenarios type of stuff. And I like to just imagine like, that's one way it could go. And what if it goes well? And give myself a chance to imagine it going well or going like I want. And then send yourself a message of safety. You want to replace the fear thought with a quick dose of positivity. So, how do you guys feel about those messages of safety? Does anyone have any messages of safety they really like for themselves? I feel like this can be hard if you're trying to send yourself a message of safety that you don't believe. That can, over time, you can start to believe it. But if you can find one that is more believable, that also still feels safe, try to go with the most believable thing for you that you can. Even if you're just saying like, it's possible that ... it's possible that this pain is neuroplastic. Even that kind of thing is going to be better than, some of those fear-based thoughts, right? So yeah, let's see. What did I put for catching your fears? Yeah, so starting to send those messages of safety. No, oh, Renee says, I am safe in this moment. Yeah. I'm safe in this moment. I like the ones like also like this is temporary. Sometimes I feel like this, you could be like, sometimes my back feels like this. This is temporary, this too shall pass. And I do really like saying I'm safe. Like I imagine an inner child, because especially for me, where there's lots of digestive stuff, it makes sense that there's like some immature or like, younger version, I'll say younger version of me is worried and fearful, and I can comfort her. And even though my rational brain is like, okay, we don't need to be scared about sending an email, I can also be like, okay, it makes sense that you're a little scared. You don't want to be rejected. You're safe. I've got you. Ooh, okay. We've got some other ones I'm going to read here. It's normal to have sensations, right? when we have that, our pain can go right away. I've experienced that. Maybe you've experienced that. Maybe it's with a new sensation, right? When we have a new sensation, sometimes that's easier than our old one that we're used to. Stress is normal. It's a part of life. I can feel this and let it pass through. Yeah, I love those. I also love the one you gave once in class. My pain never lasts long. Yeah, my pain never lasts long. There's one that's like, my body's a healing machine, right? Even things like that, or it's possible my body's a healing machine. I mean, I could find examples of that. When I get a cut, it heals and I don't have to like think about healing it every day. Right. So any of those messages of safety, like cultivate those for yourself and keep practicing them. And, try to find ones that resonate as much as you can. But even if you're not in full belief, but you can kind of like grasp that just a little bit and practice that over and over, you can start to believe it. And he does talk about that with that example of like saving bugs, where there's like, he's kind of annoyed by it, but he's like, I'm just going to try to, instead of smushing bugs when I find them in the house, I'll take them outside. And then eventually, after a couple of weeks, his friend goes to smush a spider and, he's like jumping in front of him. No. And he has actually started to care, and he's actually started to buy into that belief that bugs' lives matter. And that's that example of like, you could start by even the self-compassion, right? Like, my body does amazing things for me, right? Or like my body, it's amazing how I don't have to think about breathing every night, any of those little things that you can start to also feel safe with and build from and practice over and over, you can, create more and more of that belief. Okay, safety message from Karen. The pain is due to my brain making a mistake and my body is fine. Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, man, I just thought of some examples. I do this dance class, and so it's like one class, you learn a whole dance and perform it at the end for record it. You record it. So I'm getting nervous just talking about it. Apparently, there are some routines that are really hard for me. And I've noticed these little symptoms come up, like dizziness. All of a sudden I'm like getting dizzy more. I'm like, what? And so again, it's just kind of like my brain is making this mistake. My body is fine, knee pain, and it goes away right after class, or sometimes even when I realize it. And I'm just like, this is just for fun. This is not high stress. You know what I mean? Like, get nervous about this like recording that no one's ever going to see. This is just for fun. And I just remind myself, when my neck would hurt when I started dancing, I would say like, it's healthy for my neck to move in all these different ways. It's normal. It feels good. My body loves this motion. And after a few weeks, my brain stopped producing that pain. And I would still do all the head rolls and neck rolls and stuff, but I wasn't reinforcing, oh, maybe this is dangerous. Oh, it kind of sounded, clunky when I did that. I'm like, this is normal. This is healthy. It's good for your neck to move in all these different ways. My body loves it. And then my brain stopped producing it. Okay. Let's talk about, he's like, don't be a perfectionist about it. I love when he's talking about this woman who wants everything to be perfect for her wedding, and he's like, well, why don't you just try to enjoy it? And she's like, yeah, that's a great idea. The best way to enjoy it is if it's perfect. It's like we can get into our heads about like perfectionism is how we enjoy things, right? So leaning into the positive sensations, embracing positive feelings, like that might feel a little foreign to us. We might be like, oh, I feel really good when I get a bunch of stuff done. And I feel really good when I have everything perfect. But probably the truth is, if we're perfectionists, we don't even feel that good when it's perfect because we're still seeing the imperfections. Right. So embracing positive feelings, it's like, I always kind of do this thing with my hands where we want to not only decrease those feelings of fear and anxiety, but we want to increase those feelings of safety and good feelings, positive feelings. So that could even be when you're walking outside, feeling the sun on your face, or feeling the cool breeze, or feeling the sensation of your breath moving in your body, any of the smells that you smell, hearing birds chirping, maybe when you're in a shower, feeling that hot water and actually feeling how nice that sensation is of the heat and the water. Or if you're stretching, imagining how great that feels to have that stretch. So those are examples of some of the positive feelings that you can lean into. Definitely, those neural pathways and neuroplasticity is strong. So when we've had chronic symptoms for a while, we might even get to the point that when we're not feeling a symptom, we're like dreading it, anticipating it, wondering when it's going to come. So there's still that preoccupation with fear and symptoms, when we could actually, maybe there's a beautiful like chance to interact with someone, but we're just like over here worrying about when our pain's going to come back. So Oh, here's another one from Karen, another safety message. Breathing is safe. It feels good to breathe. Yes, exactly. I love that. Keep putting them in there, you guys, if you have more. So I remember a time, and again, this isn't, I don't have as many current pain examples. I probably have a ton of them, but this, this was more of an emotional example where it was after my mom had passed away, and it was right after, just a few days after. So I was like in shock and grief, and it was the first time I had really had a loss like that. So I was also wondering if I was doing it right, in air quotes. So I remember driving my daughter to school, and a song came on, and I started kind of like dancing and singing to it. And then it's like I just caught myself and was like, no, you can't feel that because of what had just happened. Like you're not able to feel good feeling, like almost like it would be disrespecting, or like I can't have that range of emotions. I have to just feel grief. And so I think that can be similar with our pain, where if we have had a lot of chronic pain, it's harder for us to access those pleasant feelings, and we might even start to feel like we don't trust them. I've had a lot of people, when they start to feel pleasant feelings, think like this is when the other shoe is going to drop, or when's the other shoe going to drop, or like this is too good to be true, or if it feels good, just like bracing for something bad to happen. Do you guys resonate with any of those? Definitely, I've had people even, kind of when we talk about these emotions and stuff, like maybe as children they were taught that being like really happy is kind of like prideful. If they have a lot of self-compassion, that they're being prideful, or they're like they should somehow not celebrate themselves because other people are suffering, right? So, and Alexis just says all the time. And then, yeah, thinking, when is the other shoe going to drop? Feeling hesitant to connect fully in case it gets taken away. Yes, that's such a common one, such a good one that we want to realize is like, sometimes we've gotten so used to the negative feelings that it doesn't feel safe to feel safe, right? If we think of nervous system states and we're in fear-based states, it doesn't feel safe to just let our guard down and relax. If we were spending a night in a jungle, we wouldn't let our guard down and relax and have the greatest night's sleep, because we'd be on high alert. And when we've trained our nervous system to be on high alert all the time, it can be hard to relax, hard to feel good, hard to believe that it's safe to feel good. So that's what we get to work on as part of our homework, you guys. I think that's good news, is that part of this work, it's not just about, being more perfect about catching your fear thoughts. It's about actually showing your nervous system that you're safe and feeling good in your body, and enjoying your life more, and doing that on purpose. That's part of your journey for I would say healing, but rewiring, because you're healed already. Okay, so he gives an example of someone who was chased by a dog when she was a child and bitten on the leg, and then her whole life has this fear of dogs. And even, it could be any size of dogs, the bigger the more fear. But she could never just like relax in a room with a dog, because she was always on this high alert of like, is this dog going to start attacking me? And he says this can be like with our pain, where we get traumatized by the pain, and then we are actually cutting ourselves off from those positive sensations, just like she's cutting herself off from any positive sensations with future dogs, which I love this. I just had to write this down. Dogs are happiness in animal form. So he's like, there's all these dogs that are happiness in animal form, just wanting to love on her. And he has this cute picture in the book that's like, I would never hurt you, Jane. And it's this little dog, but she's cutting herself off from all of those pleasurable experiences with dogs because of that one when she was a child. And same with pain, right? We can cut ourselves off from all of the pleasurable experiences and tastes and sounds and music and, things that we could enjoy in life because of our traumatization and fear of the pain. And when we see our body as like this source of danger, right, that's a lot of times what we start to see. And any little twinge and any little, sensation, we're like, what was that? What was that? Okay, so what are you guys thinking? We have a few minutes here. I think I've gotten done with my notes. Oh, wait, I think I had one more thing to. Nope, I already did it. Okay, yeah. So basically, noticing the fear thoughts, don't buy into it, send yourself messages of safety, and lean into positive sensations. I guess I'll ask you guys, since we have a few minutes, if there are any of those positive feelings you've been able to lean into and embrace, and how that's been going for you, any things that have worked for you that you want to share. For me, I've actually made a list of things that bring me joy, and start to look for them, just like a gratitude journal. Like when you start looking for those things, you find more of them, and it changes how you feel about life. So, I just noticed things like the feeling of clean sheets. I love that feeling. Or like that smell of rain in the morning, or seeing a dog with its head out the window. So just like cultivating and starting to really look for what Deb Dana calls glimmers. So these are these moments of that parasympathetic calm state, not to get too technical with the nervous system stuff, but like instead of a fear-based state, the rest and repair state. So you might even notice just like a 2-second rest and repair state when you're like, you get this, text from someone that says, I love you. And you're like, oh, okay, life's going to be okay. Or you, some little example, maybe you go outside and you see the dew on the grass, and it's just this beautiful little like rainbow thing. And you just have this moment of transcendence, even those little moments, looking for those. And as you can, starting to stretch those out, will start to change that momentum, right? Instead of the high alert state, you'll feel more and more like there's like other things in the world. Yeah, I'm going to go back to the comments. Rewiring is such a fascinating concept. I recall being told by numerous healthcare practitioners that nerves don't regrow, and otherwise implying that nervous system is not flexible. That really messed with my self-concept. Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. They said nerves don't regrow. I mean, as a physical therapist, I was always taught that they do regrow, but it's like very slow, like a millimeter per month. But here's the thing, is that the nervous system is a little different than what we talk about with just nerves and nerve damage. And what we know is one of the very common signs of mind body or neuroplastic symptoms can be burning, tingling, numbness, the classic things that I would call nerve pain. as a physical therapist, those can be like light switches turning on and off. So just because we're having the sensation that is like a quote unquote like nerve sensation doesn't always mean that there was actually a nerve that was damaged that's causing that pain. And even they have examples of people that do have like maybe they do have, what's it called, where their nerve is partially being in what is it called? Anyway, when like something in their spine and it's pressing on their nerve, even with this work, some people are able to completely get out of pain. Now, I'm not going to say every case is like that, but I think what we find now is the majority of people, even when we're thinking, oh, nerve root impingement, that's what it was called. Like, if I just give myself a sec, I'll think of it. So anyway, maybe what we're calling, you know, nerve damage is actually neuroplastic pain in a lot of the cases. Now, someone might have had, you know, a car accident or had, you know, some kind of accident, but just because we have a symptom doesn't even mean, you know, I would have told people, oh, that's nerve pain. Oh, that's because your nerve is damaged. And I probably told a bunch of people stuff that just wasn't true. Okay. And then over the past couple, oh, and actually, before I go to the next comment, Karen, just back to that, just any kind of detective for the opposite is so good when you can be your own best evidence, right? If you have that quote unquote nerve pain, but then you're on vacation and you don't have it one day or, you know, for a few minutes or something, then that is showing that that nerve is not damaged, right? It's not like, I don't know what they told you, but if the symptoms are changing or they're predictive in some certain way, like it's always worse in the evening or things like that, you can start to use those fit criteria or the back of the book appendix and see how those symptoms are behaving. And maybe they're actually behaving in a more neuroplastic way. Over the past couple of days, I've been noticing an area of my body which doesn't have pain. Oh, I love that. Yes, we can shift our focus to an area of the body that doesn't have pain. And even if we do that for a couple of minutes, we're teaching the brain to focus on something else and to decrease those danger signals and pain. This is reminding me of like Pavlov's dogs. You guys know about Pavlov's dogs, how he trained them to salivate when there was a bell. And apparently he also untrained them. So by not giving them food for a while after he rang the bell, he untrained them to not salivate when there was a bell. So we can do the same kind of thing with pain. That's exactly what we could do. Pinched nerve, impinge. Yeah, thanks, guys. Unfortunately, I wasn't looking at the chat when I was talking, but we got there. Yeah, and Renee, I love the embracing positive sensations. I tried doing this in the morning when I had a headache, and it was really helpful and nice. I noticed the soft sound of the rain outside, how warm and comfy it was in my bed, how my torso, trunk, arms, and legs felt good. Yay, that's so awesome, you guys. That's the secret sauce. Like, it's not gonna always be easy, and maybe only one out of the 5 mornings we do it, and then we get better and better at, like, it gets easier and easier. But those little things, especially in those moments when we're not in severe pain, it's going to be easier to do than others. So be kind with yourself. But starting to cultivate, especially when you are feeling good, these are more activities that you can, you know, start to turn to. I mean, not that you have to be feeling good to do it, but it is a little easier when you start feeling good to lean into that more. And yeah, continuing to just see those messages of safety and joy and things that feel good. I am going to just tell you about this other book. I did book club on it. I think I have it right here. Yeah, Anchored by Deb Dana. If you're ever wanting a little more information about the nervous system, and basically this whole book is about getting to that rest and repair state and how to get there, anchor there, and feel that more and more of the time. So a lot of like somatic exercises. And actually, like I said, I've done book club on it. So if you go to my YouTube has all my history of my videos I've posted, and you want to just do the exercises along with me in my group, I'll do some like practical exercises of of how to feel safe and good in your body. And it's a little more in depth. This book, The Way Out, tells you the framework, and gives you the overview. And so then if you want to go a little more in depth with like, how do I actually feel good in my body? That's the reference I would give you. All right, you guys. Oh, and then Karen says, oh yes, I fully believe it's neuroplastic at this point. Okay. Yeah, but it does mess with your head when you have been told something like that, right? And you have that symptom again. And even when you fully believe it's neuroplastic, it's normal to sometimes go back to that fear-based thought of that thing that doctor or well-meaning physical therapist who didn't know any better had told you. It does mess with your head, but keep coming back to these kind of groups, you guys. We have that Tell Me About Your Pain Facebook group for support. And the more you're balancing out those fear-based thoughts with the positive ones and the hopeful messages of neuroplasticity and rewiring and becoming less and less, becoming more and more pain-free, that will continue to happen for you. I believe that for all of you guys. And Jason, thank you. You're welcome. He says, thank you for doing this book club. So you're welcome. And it was really helpful today. Thank you. Yeah. And yes, we do have book club next week. There is just one more chapter. So we'll just finish up that chapter and then just go over whatever you guys want. Kind of a summary or questions. We can go over more of that appendix where it's talking about like Dr. Schubiner's fit criteria is what I call them. And okay, thanks you guys. A lot of people saying thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for coming. Thanks for you guys who are watching back. And same time next week. I'll see you here. Thanks, guys. Bye.